Hey, the Fuji X-H1, is it the best value APS-C camera out today? Yes, for a lot of people, it has some killer must-have features that a lot of cameras at the sub $1,000 do not have. A lot of these APS-C cameras, if you want some of the bigger features that the Fuji X-H1 has, you're gonna have to shell out at least $1,200, $1,400. And you don't get a lot of the extra value that comes with the package that retailers are offering with the X-H1. I previously had the X-T30, and in the video that you're going to be seeing playing through right now, comparison between the two is really close as far as like some of the features, but I was saying that the X-H1, despite being older and lacking some of the newer sensor processor of the X-T30, I thought that even though a lot of the videos that I'd been shooting between the two, like when I was doing weddings and some client work and I had the two cameras, I couldn't notice the difference in quality really when I brought it into Premiere, and I didn't really notice a benefit of the X-T30. However, I noticed a big benefit, and that's the reason why I got the X-H1, and those are some of the key things that we're going to be talking about. This video has been taking me a long time to finish up, not because it's complicated in terms of like the edit or the content itself. It's complicated because the prices keep changing. So I finished the entire shoot and edit of the Fuji X-H1. It went really well. I had a lot of great points. And then as soon as I was about to upload that video, the prices changed. The only thing is I want to preface what we're going to get into with that previous edit that I shot is the deals of the X-H1 are back in stock at Amazon, Adorama, and B&H, and perhaps some other retailers as well, where you get the body and the grip for $9.99. You don't get a lens, and with the battery grip you do get the additional 2 batteries. That I think is a fantastic deal, and in that video I said if the deal ever comes back, because it had gone, like I said, that's why I'm prefacing this. If the deal ever comes back, I think you should hop on it. So this is the deal that you should be getting, in my opinion. If you like the points that I am mentioning in this video right now, if you are, let's let this bus pass. The main thing I hate about living in the city is just how loud it is. If you are in the market for a new camera, if you like the points that I mentioned for the Fuji X-H1, if you like the kind of cinematics I have been making, you need to hop on this deal. $1,000 for the body and the grip. Look at the other deals too, because they're doing some really good deals where you can save like $500 to like maybe $1,500 on some of the included lenses as well. Check those out. I'll leave the links down below. They are affiliate links, so I do get a little kickback from that, and it helps support the channel right here. So if you like the content, hey, do me a favor. One other thing I do want to say is while I am making a lot of the main points as far as like why this is a great value camera, they're directly in comparison to the X-T30. A lot of those points can be directly compared to other APS-C cameras as well. In general, just I had the Lumix G7, then I went to the A6300, then I went to the X-T30, and now I have the X-H1. They all had their pros and cons. Now the X-H1 is my favorite camera, and I think one of the best value cameras, if not the best value camera that you can get at sub $1,000, especially including the grip. The main point I bring up in the video is if you consider that the battery grip is worth $300 new with the 2 batteries, that makes the body of the X-H1 worth $700, or they're pricing it at $700 with a sale. If that's the case, then this $700 body, there is no comparison to it. There is nothing that you can get for $700 that is as good as this. You can't get a GH5. You can maybe get an A6300 with the kit lens, but again, the fact that this has in-body stabilization and has much better 1080p, much better slow motion compared to the A6300, I think puts this ahead of that. Again, compared to the X-T30, which is $900 for the body alone, this is still better, a still better deal. Again, I'm frequently referring in that video almost like a head-to-head comparison between this and the X-T30, but again, a lot of those benefits that the X-H1 and some of the key characteristics of it just apply to it and every other camera in the category as well. Very happy to just see that deal come back. I know a lot of you guys have been asking me like my comparison between the X-H1 and the X-T30. Before you make the jump to the X-T30, check out the X-H1, which is an older camera, but still holds its ground really well, and especially with this deal right now, I think you really need to hop on it. Without further ado, let's get into the other points of that video. 1, 2. 1, 2. It's really tough syncing up the audio to a drone. That's right. Today we're filming this portion of the video using the DJI Mavic Pro 2. Reason being, we're talking about the X-H1. the new camera that I recently replaced my X-T30 with. Both are Fujifilm. Both are very similar, and obviously there are enough differences that help convince me that switching to this camera, in a lot of ways it's an upgrade, in a lot of ways it's a side grade, and in some ways it's even a downgrade. It's a better value as far as like between picking up a new or even a used X-T30 and the X-H1 used or new. This, despite being older, has a lot more useful features that outweigh the new benefits and the newer sensor and the newer features that the X-T30 offers. I'm willing to stick with the older X-H1 because of that. The X-T30 is a newer camera. It came out mid-March of this year, 2019, whereas this came out closer to 2 years old. So what actually inspired me to get the X-H1? Do I have any regrets? What are my thoughts comparing the two to each other? This video is going to explain a lot of the details of why I think the X-H1, depending on your style of shooting, you might actually prefer the X-H1 over the X-T30. Very soon, they are saying that the special promo that they were doing on the X-H1, where they were trying to push them all out, various retailers were doing really good deals where you could get the X-H1 without any lenses. So it's just the body plus the grip, which includes the 2 additional batteries, its charger, and all that, for $1,000.
Okay, the better deal ended. It went back to its old price of $1,300, not $1,000 anymore with battery grip like it was. While that does suck, it definitely was a better value then. For some people, it still might be a better value. Just keep listening to the other points that I make throughout the video explaining why. While it might not be the best bang for buck anymore, it still has a lot of pros over the X-T30, which makes it a better camera for me in my usage. Just keep listening, and then you can decide if the extra $300 is still worth it to you.
X-T30, I believe you can get the body only for $900. I got one of their pre-order deals, which I think for about $1,000. I got the kit lens 35mm f2.0 for about $1,000. So that was a good deal. I ended up keeping both of the lenses, and I sold the body only for the X-T30 for about $800. Between the two and what you can get, and if you're still able to get the deal on this, I'm not too sure if they're actually gonna make it go away or if they're just trying to incentivize you to make a quick purchase. Either way, I'm gonna explain my thoughts on why I think, especially coming from the background of a videographer and video editor. So I have a couple points here in front of me that I'm gonna start with. The main thing is going to be stabilization. When this first came out, a lot of people were saying that the stabilization was pretty bad. I've tested it with the latest firmware 2.01. I don't know if they're gonna ever push more firmware updates to this. That's gonna be a con that we'll discuss later. But with its latest firmware update, which improved the stabilization and a bit of the autofocus, the stabilization is actually very good on it right now. I've actually used the A7 III, and some people have said that the A7 III has good stabilization. I think I didn't really notice it being that great when I compared it to the X-T30 in one of my previous videos, you may remember. But this is actually really good. And it enables me to do a very unique style of shooting, more stable. I'm not gonna say perfectly stabilized. Very good shots, handheld, panning, going left to right, up and down. Good cinematic shots if I'm careful. A significantly better working state, and what I mean by that is I can take the footage that I shot on this compared to the X-T30 or any camera that wasn't stabilized, doing the same movements, and because of its inbuilt stabilization, and if you pair it with a lens that is stabilized and get the additional stabilization there, you are in a position to edit with that footage a lot better, whereas the other one, you're gonna have a lot more distortion, shakiness, jitters that you can't fix with warp stabilization, whereas a lot of this, most of the footage I shoot with this, if it does need additional warp stabilization, it can be worked with a lot easier compared to a non-stabilized camera. So again, if you are familiar with my channel and the kind of shooting I do, and the kind of reviews I've done in the past, you'll know that having a camera like that is extremely beneficial to me, and the kind of shooting I do is mostly out in the wild, so to say, where I try to just take the camera and make a cinematic video or whatever with as little gear as possible, mainly just the one lens and the one camera. I don't like switching out in the middle of things. I like just being pretty quick and just shooting in a minimal style. So stabilization was definitely the main factor here. Oh, the X-H1, I've never heard of that. Then I did some more research, and then I saw what some of the sample handheld stabilized footage on this looked like, and I was blown away. In fact, when I did the recent, I guess it would be the last video now, the Throwing Back Sunday promo video, all of that was handheld, where I would either just be holding it like this, or if I really wanted to make it look like it was on a tripod or something like that, I would hold it like this. And it was rock steady. It was extremely good, and I was extremely impressed. Because even though I do have a gimbal now, which I'll be reviewing, I recently got the Crane M2 for review, and so I'll be doing a review on the channel and talking about that. Despite that being a small gimbal and it's priced pretty competitively, I mean, had I not been sent that, I probably would have put off getting that purchase of a gimbal, either that or another one, to a later point of a project that really needed me to have stabilized footage walking. So like for vlogging styles, I did a recent trip, which you'll see some videos of it coming up, and you probably saw some on my Instagram page. If you're not following that, you gotta follow that. A lot of the portions where I was following Nerdy Nursey, it was handheld, and I was just walking and following. It looks a lot better than it would be without stabilization turned on, and you can add a little bit of stabilization or warp stabilization to it to make it better. It's not going to be perfect. For a run and gun situation like that, it's very usable, and I was even using a tight 35 on that, I think, and I mean the results were still great. So that's a lot on stabilization. I know I took a major portion of my talking points just talking about that, but again, that honestly is one of the main portions. Even if you're not a videographer, for photography, you don't have to have your shutter speed as fast when you're hand holding, because the stabilization is going to offset a lot of that shakiness that you'd normally get on a non-stabilized camera. So even if you're a photographer, whether you're doing low light photography or you're trying to get a different style that requires a slower shutter speed, something like this would enable you to maybe double what you'd normally be able to do on a non-stabilized camera. But anyways, bringing us to the next point, we're going to talk about the actual camera itself in terms of build and durability. This is a significantly larger camera than the X-T30. Maybe you can't tell on video, but every part of it is thicker, from here to the top, especially the grip, significantly heavier, significantly thicker, which in itself is a downside, except for the grip, which is a pro in that it helps you hand hold it like this a lot easier without having the single strap, which I do now. I don't even have a neck strap anymore. This is the way I like to shoot, just like this on that, and it's secure enough for me that that's my preferred way of shooting, and it doesn't obstruct when I put it on a tripod or put it on a gimbal. Because it's so much more durable and things like that, I'm less worried about putting it in a backpack with other gear. Even though I'm very careful with my gear, it just gives me an extra confidence and extra peace of mind knowing that this can take more of a fall, and if I'm stuck in the rain or bad weather or whatever, that's not going to hurt it. This is weather sealed. So rain and dust and things like that, it's going to be more resistant to that compared to the X-T30. Obviously, you're still limited in your lens choices. So if you have a cheap lens like I still do, then you're still going to be limited on its durability, but the camera itself is going to be more durable in that sense. Another thing, and I thought this was a very big one that I was very pleasantly happy, that I was very happy to find when I got it. The SD card slot is on the side versus the bottom. They don't have it on the bottom because they do have the battery grip for it. The X-T30 is on the bottom, and you might think, well, what's the big deal with that? Well, if you're on a tripod or a gimbal, if you want to switch out SD cards, that means you have to unscrew it from either the gimbal or the tripod just to access your SD card slot, which might not seem like a big deal, but if you're in a situation where you need to switch out SD cards really quickly for whatever reason, that is going to be a pretty big deal. Unfortunately, that did happen to me a couple times where like you could potentially miss a shot because you're out trying to switch SD cards. Tied in with that as well, you have a second SD card slot, and that enables you to do a couple things. You can dual record. So if you want peace of mind knowing that you're recording files to 2 SD cards, so whatever that might be, for redundancy, either you're worried that one SD card might get damaged or lost or whatever, and you have another backup one, or it didn't write properly to it, so you still have the footage written to another, that's great. Or for example, you could have it set up so it writes to slot 1 first, and once that fills up, it writes to slot 2, or it records photos to one and videos to another. I believe that's an option. The additional peace of mind of backing everything up to 2 or having everything written to 2 is great, and a more pro level feature that you don't have on the X-T30. Could I do without it? Yes, but now that I have it, I'm very glad that I do have it for situations where I do need to be able to write to 2. Another big one is this jack right here. That's a 3.5 millimeter audio in. What I can do when I'm recording videos for clients or other projects that I'm doing get away fly. Whether you're using like a Rode mic or the wireless mic system, 3.5 millimeter jack in is great. On the XT30, it's 2.5 millimeter, which is a very odd size because most of the gear you're using is 3.5 millimeter. So that means you have to buy an adapter. Not a big deal. The adapter's like $1, maybe 50 cents, $2, whatever, even if it's $5. But it does mean a very important thing. You need that jack. Your gear on its own is compatible with most other cameras out of the box, meaning you don't need anything else. Whereas with the XT30, you needed that 2.5 millimeter adapter. If you don't have that, all this great audio gear will not work with your camera no matter what. There's no way to plug it in. The battery grip here is obviously another big thing that you'll notice. Putting this down, this right here is your battery grip. And it's probably about half the weight, if not more, of the XT30. On its own, it goes for $300 and it includes the 2 additional batteries. I think that's pretty overpriced for what it is. I'll tell you what I actually use it for. Just the batteries. And one other thing, headphone out. The ability to monitor your audio directly through the camera if you need to. There are a lot of situations where that's actually pretty useful. And having that 3.5 millimeter out jack is great. A lot of cameras don't have that. I don't believe the A64 does. The XT30 didn't. And again, that's more reserved for higher-end cameras. It would have been great if it was built into here right away. It's not. I like to shoot, again, with as few gear as possible. So less battery pack, less wires. Despite the fact that this is clunky and it does take up space, it adds enough functionality that it's worth carrying around and keeping it on the camera for the most part all the time. Obviously, the main benefit of this, having 2 additional batteries in here. Your recording time is tripled. Instead of just 1 battery, you have 3 batteries now, which is really great. They're the same batteries, they're interchangeable. I would say the battery life on this compared to the XT30 is probably about the same. I haven't actually done a direct comparison, so I'm not entirely sure. But adding the 2 additional battery packs, and I don't need an external battery charger or battery pack on me all the time. So what that enables me to do is just record for longer periods of time without worrying, now, do I have enough charge on my battery? Do I need to bring out my external battery pack? Grip on its own is worth $300. I mean, they do sell for $300 new. And that means the body alone of this is $700. And if you're doing apples to apples, then this $700 body versus the, again, what do we say the XT30's bodies? If the body alone of that is $800 and $900 and this is $700, then yes, I think the body alone is worth more than the body of the XT30, despite the XT30 having the newer sensor and a few other pros that we'll talk about in a bit. Sticking with the battery grip again, so around here we did see, this is where you plug in your power brick to it. And the power grip is great in that it charges these 2 batteries in here really quickly. I do think it was a bit of an oversight that it doesn't charge the internal battery here as well. On here on the back, you have normal and boost settings. I always keep it on normal. I've never needed for boost. I think boost would be more like if you're doing burst shooting and you just want to operate a little faster. So that's probably more of a photography feature, and being that this is a vertical grip as well, for photographers who like to shoot like that. You do have your shutter release there, your Q menu, another joystick dial button over there as well, and some autofocus settings. Again, being that I primarily shoot in the horizontal position and I'm mostly a videographer versus a photographer, I haven't actually used it as a vertical grip. I just mainly have it as the additional battery pack. $300 worth of value in the battery pack alone. If you believe it, then that means the body alone of this is only $700, making this, in my opinion, one of the best deals, especially for APS-C cameras. Going back to the main body itself, you'll notice far more dials with far more settings here. Your ISO dial, you have your shutter speed, your video or photo modes, and you still have these 2 dials here. So I have the front one set to aperture, like I said, and the back one is also set to shutter speed. So you have your main shutter speed, I don't know what you call them, ranges. Using the back one, I can go from 60 to 50 to 48 down to 40 because the next option is 30. It might seem a little complicated at first, but I do like having those additional dials to just quickly switch out my settings and always being able to see my settings. The other big thing is having the info screen at the top here. I've never had a camera that had that. I know a lot of top-end photography cameras have that setting. Haven't really seen any like Sony's with it that I know of. But right at a glance, it tells me my battery levels for the 3. So it shows that my left one, my right one in here are fully charged because again, the DC adapter charges this, but not the body, and the internal one is dead. And if I had an SD card in here, it would actually tell me how much space I have left to record. And then when you actually have the camera on, it tells you what mode you're in. So it shows that I'm in 4K, 23.98 frames per second. It shows my ISO, it shows my Kelvin, my white balance.
and it shows that I'm in the eternal profile. I like having all those settings right there and just being able to look at the top and knowing what I'm at. For whatever reason, it's too bright outside, like it's really sunny and you can't see, or something's obstructing the view there, or you just need to be able to look down at it really quickly. Say this is on a tripod and you're moving between a lot of cameras. Now, the viewing angles on the LCD screen are also a little different. So like the X-T30, it can go like this. It's a touchscreen, it's about the same size, I believe, but it also can do this little flip out here. Is cool, but not necessary, and I'll explain why. For photographers, I guess it might be useful if you're shooting in a vertical grip like that. I would like to have what I had on my G7, my Lumix G7. You can't have a flip out screen that goes like that. You're kidding me. Like, this is stupid. This does nothing for me, to be completely honest. So I wish it would have a normal flip out screen like you're supposed to have on a camera. It doesn't. Is this enough of a selling feature to justify getting from the X-T30 to this alone? No, of course not. But for those of you who think you'd benefit from it, there's another pro to the X-H1. Now, I think the other thing that's kind of unique about this is the fact that this can shoot in a more cinematic film ratio of 17:9 at 4K with full HD as well. The X-T30 can't. And 17:9 is more cinematic because it's wider, whereas this is wider. So as opposed to cropping from the top in and losing the footage there, you have more footage to work with as far as like getting that cinematic look. The trade-off to that, however, is that other gear that you're using, so whether that's X-T30 or the DJI Mavic Pro 2 or most cameras in general that are shooting at 16:9, to match that, you have to crop in because it has the same height, not as wide. The only thing is when you're importing into Premiere, Final Cut, or whatever you're using, After Effects, you just need to do that to each file you're importing. As good as this is, it does obviously still have some downsides, and then after that, I'll quickly wrap this up because I realize I've been talking for so long. I would say the main downside coming from the X-T30 is that it is older. Being that it's older, it means it's going to get less updates, if any, in the future. The most recent one was a while ago that it improved and actually made the stabilization on this useful, which was the main thing I needed, so I'm not too upset. And it improved the autofocus a little bit, but still kind of hit or miss like we were saying. And despite the X-T30 still being pretty hit or miss on their autofocus too, I have more confidence in that getting better and getting more updates which will fix or improve or add more features to the X-T30 compared to this. Being that this is older and the X-T30 still recently came out and they're going to still be supporting that camera for a far longer period of time. Do understand, being that this is older, it's going to get less support and less updates, less new features compared to the newer cameras. With that, we were talking about autofocus. Again, I do think it's probably a little worse than the X-T30. It might be on par, but it's probably a little worse. I know the X-T30 has the newer sensor, supposedly improved the autofocus. I didn't really notice it for a lot of the shooting. I felt like they were both struggling in the same situations. I do know they're also talking about improving that in future updates. So again, like I was saying, the X-T30 is probably gonna be better than this if it isn't already, within a few updates. The other main thing is this is heavier, it's much bulkier, it's harder to pack, it takes up more space, it's more fatiguing to use for a longer period of time. Whether you're shooting a concert, a long event, wedding, what have you, this is heavier just to hold around, whether it's on your neck or your wrist strap or things like that. But especially for longer periods of time, you are going to feel this extra weight here, and that could make you less incentivized to bring it with you, to carry it with you, to bring it on a trip, to use it for a shoot, just because it is heavier and not as easy to use. Is it significantly more than the X-T30? It's enough that I do notice. Obviously, you can lose some weight by taking off the battery grip, but again, I thought that was a main feature that I wanted to keep along with it. The only time I take this off is when I put it on a gimbal. And with gimbals, that's interesting. So it does manage with this kit lens and even the 35mm to work pretty well, the Zhiyun Crane M2. And I think at that point, this is pretty much pushing it. Obviously, I'm taking, like I said, the battery grip off so it works with it. Otherwise, it would not work at all. That is definitely at the weight capacity for it. So if I was to put on a larger lens, it probably would not work. Whereas if I had an X-T30 with that larger lens, because it's lighter, it might be able to compensate for the weight of the larger lens, being that its body is a lot lighter. What that means is, for example, if you do want to really take advantage of a gimbal and you want to use larger lenses and things like that, then you've stepped into the realm of needing larger, more expensive gear. More expensive is a downside, larger is a downside as well. You can't have the compact size of the nice Crane M2. You need to have that larger crane at that point. That about sums up the pros and the cons of the X-H1, why I bought one and sold the X-T30. I know we discussed a lot as far as like the pros and cons of the X-H1, but those are the main reasons why I think the X-H1 is a better deal right now. It's a better value as far as like between picking up a new or even a used X-T30 and the X-H1 used or new. This, despite being older, has a lot more useful features that
outweigh the new benefits and the newer sensor and the newer features that the X-T30 offers. I'm willing to stick with the older X-H1 because of that. Hopefully this is useful to you, and if you're deciding, because I know I still have a lot of people who are asking me, like, what's your opinion about the X-T30 now? Can you make an update review video, comparison, da-da-da. And then they're saying that I got the X-H1, they wanted a comparison, so I wanted to get this out as fast as possible. Hopefully that helps you make the decision. I know for certain people that the benefits of the X-T30 are still gonna outweigh the cons, or excuse me, the pros of this. If you like the style of shooting I do, if you feel like you shoot in similar styles to me, then I think that this will be the better video camera for you. And in fact, I think my photography game has been improved just for the fact that, like I was saying, I can get a lot cleaner low light shots, action shots, because of the stabilization built into this, along with the other pros that I mentioned. So appreciate you tuning in. I know this is going to be a long ass video. I really love this camera, and I'm going to be making more videos in the future, doing some more reviews as well. So stay tuned for that. And until next time, as always,